Simon, a seemingly regular teenager, has a remarkable secret unknown to those around him. He has two hidden identities that he has maintained for the past 10 years. Both of these identities are connected to a girl named Madeline. During the day, Simon assumes the role of Madeline's boyfriend, and they enjoy their intimate relationship together. They spend time together, share their lives, and create cherished memories. However, when night falls, Simon transforms into Madeline's birth brother without anyone suspecting. He has been living with Madeline and her family for the past decade, seamlessly blending into their daily lives. Simon, a baby left at the doorstep of an orphanage, has spent 9 years living here, hoping to be adopted one day. Little does he realize that his dream of being adopted will soon come true. But in a way far different from what he expects, Simon possesses a unique and hidden power that he has never shared with anyone before. He can transform into any person he touches, thanks to his shape-shifting ability. Despite experiencing a childhood filled with loneliness and unhappiness, Simon finds ways to have fun on his own. Occasionally, he uses his shape-shifting ability to transform into the orphanage caretaker, allowing him to sneak out late at night and buy himself some cotton candy. With a sense of contentment, he sneaks back inside the orphanage and reverts back to his true form as a little boy, silently returning to his bed. On this particular day, as all the orphans gather on a ship docked for the town's festival, Simon seizes the opportunity to sneak away and hide in the engine room. To his surprise, he finds himself face to face with a girl named Madeline, peering at him from the other side. Just then, another boy named Thomas enters through a hatch, carrying cakes and a bottle of wine for themselves. Thomas notices Simon's curious gaze and kindly invites him to join them, offering to share their food. Feeling a sense of trust, Simon opens up and reveals that he was left at the orphanage when he was just a baby. In the act of sympathy, Thomas claims to have a potato allergy and explains that he cannot eat fries. Much time later, Simon manages to sneak a plate of bread and hides beneath the table to share it with his newfound friends. Suddenly, powerful hands snatch Madeline away from their hiding spot, and Thomas tries to flee. With a heavy heart, Simon watches as his friends laugh and rejoice with their parents, feeling a deep longing for a family of his own. Later in the afternoon, Madame Cotron calls Simon and tells him that Thomas wants to invite him to their house for the weekend. Simon is incredibly excited because it's the first time he has ever received an invitation. When the weekend arrives, Thomas' father, Jack, picks up Simon and drives him to their house. From that moment on, Simon is having the happiest days of his life. In this family, he is treated with the same respect and love as any other child. Every moment is filled with joy, and he becomes even closer to Thomas and his sibling. Later that night, Thomas secretly brings a small knife into the fort they built in his room. He asks Simon if he wants to become blood brothers for life by mixing their blood and sharing their biggest secrets. Simon, determined to be a part of their family, agrees without hesitation. Thomas cuts his palm and lets his blood drip onto a glass ashtray, and both Madeline and Simon do the same. After sealing the pact and covering their wounds with bandages, Thomas starts by sharing his secret once saw his mother naked. Next, Madeline sadly admits that she doesn't have any friends, but Thomas interrupts, saying it's obvious and reassuring her. Feeling pressured to reveal an undisclosed truth, Madeline confesses that her parents have told her she won't live past 20 years old. As the boys look at her in silence, Madeline urges Simon to share his secret. It's the first time Simon feels trusted, so he decides to share his most important secret. He reassures the siblings not to be scared and emphasizes the importance of their bond. Regardless of his unusual secret, both siblings affirm their acceptance. Right before their eyes, Simon transforms into someone else's appearance. Leaving the siblings astonished, Simon reveals that he has the ability to take on the appearance of anyone he has touched. Additionally, when he transforms, any wounds on his body heal rapidly. The siblings are amazed by Simon's extraordinary power. They share joyful laughter and make a heartfelt commitment to be a forever family, always promising to support each other. Later, in the middle of the night, Simon hears heavy breath from Madeline's room and heads over to check on her. He finds her in great pain due to her heart condition. Simon reaches out his hand and gently touches her, then immediately transforms into Madeline's appearance. Suddenly, he feels the same aching in his chest and struggles for air. Simon feels a sense of impending death, closer than ever before. However, he is not aware that his action has caused the girl in front of him to be entirely captivated by him. The next day, Thomas and Simon go to the forest to play. As they venture into the woods, Thomas gives Simon his pocket knife so he can dig an escape from the orphanage. Thomas eagerly starts the race. After setting a branch on a path to mark their starting point, Simon falls behind due to his smaller figure. Determined to win the race, Simon then transforms himself into a taller boy and quickly overtakes Thomas, leaving him behind as the two boys run further and chase each other in the forest. Thomas accidentally trips and tumbles several times before falling into a deep ravine. Upon hearing Thomas scream, Simon searches and calls out for him, stumbling upon the cliff and realizing that his friend has no chance of survival. The night Jack pursues the wood with a search team into the woods. Overwhelmed with fear, Simon manages to evade the adults who are looking for him. When he hears the group calling out their names, Simon realizes they're mostly searching for Thomas. The boy then quietly makes his way to Thomas's house. Peering through the window, he sees the family deeply worried and concerned. He then tears off the bandage from his hand, as his wound has already healed. With the knife Thomas gives him earlier, he cuts another wound, determined to assume the appearance of Thomas, and continues letting in his identity. As a knock comes on the door, the mother opens it to find her son. She is filled with excitement, yet the sudden surge of love and the incident are overwhelming for the boy. In a state of shivering, Simon starts his new family life. Later at night, Madeline asks him if he is truly Thomas, to which he can only pretend to be calm and confirm it. Stepping forward, she removes the bandage from his hands and sees the fresh wound, affirming her belief that this is indeed her brother. Simon feels happy and anxious as he finally has the family he's been dreaming of. Some days later, the adults hold a funeral for Simon as the boy remains unfound. Simon, who has already transformed into Thomas, silently observes his own tombstone. A decade passes in a blink, and both Simon and Madeline have grown up. No one ever notices Simon's identity as strange, as if he is the real Thomas. Even as something is off the way when he looks at Madeline, the girl never finds it weird. One day, their father, Jack, adds Thomas' name to the sign board of the mirror shop he has built with his own hand. This means Simon will take his father's steps and inherit the mirror shop business. However, he feels lost as he doesn't know what he truly wants because he has never been himself. A few days later, it's Thomas' birthday. As a tradition, the parents display photos of him from childhood to adulthood. When leafing through an old picture of the three of them together when they were young, silence falls upon the room. The secret deep within Simon resurfaces, sparking a sudden idea in his mind. He wonders what his true self will look like when he grows up. Slowly walking back to his room, Simon stands before the mirror and closes his eyes. A stranger teen's face appears in the reflection when he opens them again. This is the most authentic version of Simon. From this day on, Simon always seeks the chance to transform into his true self. He even buys a telescope that he likes and indulges himself in a large serving of French fries, a food that he hasn't eaten for in years because Thomas was allergic to them. One day, while he is enjoying himself, Madeline accidentally passes by, and the eyes of the meet. Her gaze is so sharp and piercing, leaving Simon feeling panicked. He quickly returns home and changes his clothes in case Madeline sniffs something different that will cause his true identity to leak. However, his worries confirm when Madeline returns home and confronts him about whether Simon has actually faked his disappearance. Fearful of his secret being exposed, Simon denies her thoughts. However, Madeline persists and can let go of her suspicions. Before long, Madeline creates a missing poster with Simon's true face. Faced with no choice, Simon has to transform back into his true self and deliberately let Madeline see him. And the result is as expected. As soon as Madeline sees Simon, she approaches him and asks if he is the one. However, Simon immediately denies it. Disappointed, Madeline is about to leave when she suddenly begins to wheeze heavily. Just like when they were children, Simon quickly helps her outside. Amy mentions having a best friend who also likes to order a large serving of French fries and enjoy it on his own. Simon explains that he eats the fries because he can't afford anything else. Since their initial meeting, Simon and Madeline quickly grow closer and develop strong feelings for each other. They embark on a new relationship where Simon reveals his true identity and dates Madeline during the daytime. However, to maintain the facade and continue living with the family, Simon transforms into Thomas during the night, ensuring that their bond remains intact. This unique arrangement allows Simon to experience the love and connection he has always yearned for while still protecting his secret. One night, as they engage in conversation, Madeline casually mentions being in love with a man named Michel. A sudden wave of unease washes over her as she notices Simon's affectionate gaze in response to her words. She starts to suspect that the person sitting beside her is not her brother Thomas, but the late Simon. The next day, Madeline sets up a few traps to test her suspicion. They were supposed to have a date, but Simon waits for a long time while Madeline never shows up. Instead, she hides far away, secretly observing him. Simon, feeling disappointed, decides to leave. He jumps into a hole and expertly changes his clothes. Madeline witnesses everything from a distance, and her worst fear is confirmed when she sees her brother emerge from the hole. She is faced with the devastating truth that she cannot bear. When Madeline asks about the whereabouts of the real Thomas, Simon takes her to the cliff. When the girl suggests revealing the truth to their parents, Simon is too scared to take on action. They argue about it, and shortly after, the police conduct a search beneath the cliff. They discover a set of child's bones that everyone assumes to be Simon, who went missing 10 years ago. Only Madeline and Simon know that it's Thomas' remains. After a simple funeral, Simon can no longer bear the resentful gaze of Madeline. He runs back home in a frenzy, packs his bags, and intends to leave home. Confused, their father questions his intention. On the other hand, Madeline, holding a gun, points it at him, demanding that he tells the truth to their parents. In the midst of chaos, Simon falls to the ground as the gunshot echoes. As he grows weaker, Simon reverts to his true appearance, and his wounds disappear. Beside him, Madeline slowly reveals past events, making their parents realize that the body found beneath the cliff belonged to Thomas. Understanding that he can no longer stay in this home, Simon tries to rush out, but their furious father stops him, believing that Simon killed Thomas all those years ago. In the heat of the moment, Simon transforms back into Thomas and manages to escape with a car, leaving every pursuing police behind, unable to find any trace of him because he can become anyone. One day, a month later, Madeline and her mother are taking a walk by the seaside. Suddenly, she notices an old man who has been staring at them. At that moment, she realizes that it is the long-lost Simon. Following her heart, Madeline finally confesses her love to Simon, and aware of the police officers monitoring nearby, she suggests an escape together. They just start running, but Madeline suffers a heart attack midway and collapses. In order to carry her, Simon instantly transforms into Madeline's father. He and Madeline's mother rush her to the hospital. The doctors inform them that the situation is critical, and that Madeline's life may be at risk without a suitable heart. Tears uncontrollably stream down Simon's face at this moment. He wants to do something for his beloved. At the same time, the police arrive at the hospital, planning to take down Simon. In a rush, Simon discreetly touches a passing doctor and enters the pharmacy to obtain some medication. The police are prepared this time, but are still unable to surpass the boy. Simon makes his way to Madeline's hospital room, where he dismisses her parents. He then reverts back to his true appearance. The police are taken aback as they enter the room and discover Simon lifeless. Holding Madeline on the bed, they realize that Simon has taken his own life with a substance. In his hand, they find a note pleading for them to save Madeline. To heed his final request, Simon and Madeline's body is prepared for a heart transplant. Time passes, and the Durant family mourns. At the cemetery, the urns containing the ashes of the two boys are placed under their respective names, officially recognizing Simon as Simon Durant. At the end of the movie, Madeline runs away, living her second life with her lover's heart. In real life, even without superpowers like Simon, we sometimes have to pretend and act differently because of the situations we face. Life is tough, and it's not easy to find true love. Let's always remember to be true to ourselves, have the strength to remove our masks, and be brave enough to be who we truly are.
Subscribe to see more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.